Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're doing as well as Clinton the cat and Blackberry the kitten, who also appear to be doing well. Say hi, Clinton. Good boy. So today I wanted to discuss the fact that DeBlasio has chosen to stop housing the homeless in the Lucerne Hotel in the Upper West Side. This was a bit of a controversial move during the COVID pandemic of having the homeless housed in several hotels throughout the city. One of them was the Lucerne in the Upper West Side. The Upper West Side, for those who don't live in New York City, is a very well-to-do neighborhood that someone like me could not afford to live in unless I was living in literally a box with, 3 or 5 other people. Even with 13, 14 employees, I cannot afford a $4 million, an $8 million, a $16, a $32 million apartment in that neighborhood, nor can I afford the exorbitant rents to live there. It is a very, very high-class neighborhood. This is for your surgeons, your lawyers that have been very successful, and so on and so forth. So this is not the typical neighborhood in New York City. So there is a bit of aggravation at the fact that the NIMBY people, or the not in my backyard people, managed to get this to happen. Now, this was a controversial move for many reasons. I used to have a store next to I believe it was a homeless shelter. Not a store, it was a basement office at 251 West 30th Street. And before that, in 2011 and 10, I was using 247 West 30th Street on the 5th floor. It was right next door to a place that provided a lot of services to the homeless. But the people there were trained in how to deal with all your different classes of homeless. From your, just got evicted, parents just died, best friends in another country so he can't sleep on his couch but is otherwise a normal person, to very, very, very badly mentally ill, pissing at people on the street kind of thing. And this was controversial, in my opinion, because it didn't seem like the people at the Lucerne were exactly fit to handle all the different types of homeless people that are going to show up at the facility. Now, just out of curiosity, I rode by this area every now and then, I didn't record it and upload it because I don't want to deal with like the litany of comments saying, "How dare you? You're making the homeless look bad." Sometimes I would go up there and it really just would look like a normal neighborhood with no problems, and it was totally fine. And sometimes I would go up there and see homeless people that are like screaming at kids as they walk by, like, "I'm gonna fuck you up." It's ridiculously crazy shit. Everybody who's been in New York City at some point has had a homeless person that's walking back and forth, walk up to them, talk to them like they're going to beat the shit out of them, and then just completely walk away as if they're talking to a mirage. It's like they're not even talking to you. They don't even know that you're there. It's just you just so happen to walk into their space at that time and it happened. And if you're living in a neighborhood like the one I live in now, you're probably not going to have that same sense of outrage as you would if you were living in a $4 to $16 million apartment. If you're living in a $4 to $16 million small apartment, you probably did not move there with the idea that if you told your kid, "Hey, little Timmy, go to the store and pick this up for us," that there's going to be someone who goes to sell him drugs or someone who is clearly in need of mental help, screaming and cursing about how they're going to kill someone walking up and down the street. And there were a lot of people that got aggravated at this, and I understand why they got aggravated at this. Can I say the part that I'm like not supposed to say? As someone who has volunteered for helping the homeless, as someone who actually delivers food to community fridges so that people have food that they can eat if they're homeless, there are a lot of people that just that assume that every homeless person is like Tiny Tim that just got evicted yesterday, when the reality is that there are a lot of people that if you ask for, if they say they're hungry and you give them food, as has happened to me 3 times, once in San Diego, twice here, will literally take that food and throw it at you, or scream about how they're going to fuck you up and blah, 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 and expose themselves in front of you, and there's not really much that an untrained person can do with that. And it's fairly easy to say, well, how dare you? It's inexcusable and confirms that the suffering means less to DeBlasio than the power of those who find it inconvenient. It is inhumane and just plain wrong, and the mayor should be ashamed. And what I really want to highlight here is that when a lot of people talk about Mayor DeBlasio as this person, and like, he has... to be clear, I did not vote for this man. But as someone who did not vote for him, I find it really interesting that he has an impossible job. As I've mentioned in prior videos, New York City really is that mashup between, Archie Bunker on this side and the Carlos Maza SJWs on this side. It has the Bushwick and Williamsburg hipsters on this side, and then it also has the Upper East Side Gossip Girl socialites on the other side. And like, there's really... as a politician, your job is not to have your own viewpoints necessarily. It is to be a representative of your voting base, of your constituents. So how are you a representative of individuals who are Upper East Side, like, again, like the Gossip Girl, Waldorf family kind of people, and the Bushwick and Williamsburg hipster? How do you properly represent the broke families in Washington Heights that are living paycheck to paycheck and people on the Upper West Side? He has how do you properly represent the people screaming abolish the police in the streets, as well as the Staten Island back the blue people? Like, this is the problem that he has. It is, and I'm not saying that I liked DeBlasio, but I understand that it is very, very difficult to represent all of these people, and it is literally impossible. And this is something that you see on a regular basis. The NYPD will say that he doesn't back us. They turn their backs on him when he was giving a speech because they genuinely dislike him for his rhetoric that they blame for some of the anti-police, the temperature going up over time. And then at the same time, when there's an incident where the police clashed into protesters, there's a lot of debate over this. Like this, people surrounded the car. They said they should have de-escalated. The police just kind of went, and drove through him to get out of there. DeBlasio had said over here that it was troubling, but that they were surrounding the cruiser and that they were to blame. And so over here you have an environment where the NYPD will turn their backs on DeBlasio, while simultaneously the protesters will say, this is a protest that I walked through because I kind of like to see what it is for myself rather than listen to what the news has to say. Never listen to what the news has to say. That's propaganda. You should actually walk with them and kind of get an idea of what's going on. It says over here, fire DeBlasio. And something tells me that this guy here is not a Maliotakis voter. And if you take a look, we have a population in New York City of, I believe, 8.3, 8.5 million. Here we go. 8.3, 8.4 million people in New York City. And if you take a look at the mayoral election in 2017, 726,000 people voted. Now, of the people who voted in that election, 66% voted for him. However, as a percentage of the population of New York City, less than 10% of the population could be bothered to vote for this man. And I think that's something that's very important, because I'll get people that say all the time, well, I don't want to see people like Lewis leave New York City because they're going to bring their voting patterns with them. And I don't want people that have a communist as a mayor to be voting here. Hey, everybody. How's it going? So I was just in Long Island. I'm making my way back home. I'm in Queens right now, and I'm on 149th Place and Sanford Avenue, and I see this lovely little thing over here. So I just wanted to give people a reminder who don't live in the city, because a lot of people, this is the thing that kills me, a lot of people seem to believe in my comment section that everybody thinks the same in a particular area, that there's this concept of the geographic monolith, and this may come to surprise some people out there, but not everybody in New York City voted for the guy. As you can see here, there's a little sad face over there, and it says impeach. And one of the reasons that I've suggested that this is very ignorant is, people who are actually card-carrying communists, people who actually want to defund and abolish the police, again, will march and protest with signs that say fire DeBlasio. And B, of the people in the city, if you meet someone who came from New York City, there is a less than 1 in 10 chance, again, by statistics here, less than 1 in 10 chance that you will actually run into someone who wanted or voted for DeBlasio. So if 10 New Yorkers move into your town, for all you know, you're getting 9 people that are not in favor of DeBlasio. And this is one of the things that I find interesting going forward. A lot of people say, well, it seems like people don't like DeBlasio, they don't like him. And if you read too much New York Post or too much Fox News, you'll get the idea that everybody hates him because he is too left. No, that is not the case at all. Again, people who are for the homeless are saying DeBlasio should be ashamed of himself. People who are for defunding the police and police reform want DeBlasio fired. Most likely, it will shift way more to the left in terms of what is going to be accepted. Because I think the person who would win as mayor 7 or 8 years ago, or even 3 to 4 years ago, is not the person who's going to win in the next election. And I honestly do find it interesting, just to like, the more I read these articles and the more that I actually live here and live through the news, realizing how easy it is to fall into that polarized trap of thinking that this one guy is a complete and utter card-carrying communist who panders to the left endlessly, who the left loves. They a lot of them don't. He actually panders enough to the left, and he has enough left-wing rhetoric to piss off anybody who is centrist to the right, while simultaneously agreeing with people who are on the right just enough so that everybody on the left actually hates him. This is the problem with putting an idea together this way. Do you have people that are in the Upper West Side that probably just want to be able to allow their kid to walk to the store by themselves, that doesn't want to worry about a homeless person exposing themselves or walking up to him and threatening him or screwing with him on the street or doing something crazy? Yes. Do you also have people that probably, even if the homeless people were nice and kind, just doesn't want to see someone who's slightly more impoverished than them in their community? I paid $16 million for this apartment. How dare that bum be on my street? Yeah, there probably are. And they're probably mixed together. So it's very easy to miss out on the nuance and kind of focus on the one that you're more temperamentally likely to focus on. Which one offends you more? Which one resonates with you more? And when you do that and you just say, well, they should all be ashamed of themselves. Now what happens is the people in that group that actually do want to help the homeless properly are going to say, you know what? Well, screw all you people that advocate for the homeless. Screw you all. We don't want any of it here. Then those people are going to get more hardened into their position and say, well, screw you 1%ers and all you people, hoity-toity, well-to-do people on the Upper West Side. We're going to fill your entire neighborhood with homeless people. How do you like that? This is not going to help anybody. This really, genuinely is not going to help anybody. As I said previously, my business used to be located next to a place that provided services for the homeless. My business was at 247 West 30th Street for 2009 to 2011, and at 251 West 30th Street for 2011 and a little bit of 2012. Right next door, I think, was 253 or 257 West 30th Street, which provided services to the homeless. They were doing it from a place of being qualified to do so. They understood how to deal with the person that, just was down on their luck, lost their job, and doesn't have a couch to sleep on because his friend's in another country and his parents just died. And they knew how to deal with the person that was high on PCP, losing their mind, threatening to everybody there, who looked like a crackhead, appeared like, to act like a crackhead, and probably was a crackhead. They knew how to deal with all these situations. As a result of it, having my business there, it was of no problem to me to be literally right next door to a place that was providing services to the homeless. I had no problem whatsoever. I actually tried hiring from there once or twice. That I had problems with, but that's another story. But I had no problems with its presence there. It didn't make me feel unsafe. It didn't make me feel like the neighborhood was going to hell as a result of it, because it was properly managed. But that's different than putting hundreds of homeless people into a hotel with little and poor management and saying, let's just hope for the best. That doesn't work. And then once you do that, you actually make the idea in and of itself appear to be a bad idea. So for me, let's just take it from a right to repair standpoint. If I advocate for right to repair, or Jessa Jones advocates for right to repair, we're advocating for a right, but we're also taking on the responsibility of doing repairs properly, keeping a good rating for our businesses, and showing millions of other people how to do repairs properly. I think people would have a different opinion of right to repair if the people advocating for it were all the one-star repair shops and Geek Squad. You may be a little bit more skeptical of it. Same is true here. I think it's important that people actually believe that providing services for the homeless, as someone who has volunteered here before, is important. At the same time, that must be done properly, because if it's done improperly, you are going to put a bad taste in the public's mouth, and then you get to this stupid conflict. And yet, once you're at this point where you have people lobbing grenades at each other, how dare you, should be ashamed of themselves. Get the fuck out of my neighborhood. This doesn't matter who wins there. Nobody wins. This is just people becoming hardened into their position, stubbornly so, because they heard something from the other side that they didn't like, and it really does make me sad, because this is not going to help anybody. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. My cat just hissed at my other cat, so I have something to break up here, and bye now. Blackberry! Blackberry, why are you hissing?